I think that Ivan was both courageous and cowardly. I'm going to do courageous and Lucy's going to talk about cowardly. So I think he was courageous because instead of backing out of the challenge, he decided to take it. So in the story it says, the seventh paragraph, it says, perhaps it was a temptation of the five gold rubles. Knowing you why, Ivan, moistening his lips, said suddenly, "Yes, Lieutenant, I'll cross the cemetery." I think that kind of proves that Ivan was courageous because instead of saying no, which he easily could have done and like saved his life, he said yes and took the challenge.
Well, I agree that you could prove that Ivan was courageous because he took the challenge and didn't say no. I think that in paragraph 7 it also says that perhaps it was the vodka, perhaps it was the temptation of the 5 gold rubles, which kind of means that it necessarily wasn't just him thinking, oh, I will be brave if I take this challenge. It could have been not really him talking, it could have been the vodka or the temptation of the rubles. And also, I think another point that he is cowardly is how the fact that he went into the cemetery like shaking and that caused him to stab his coat and kill himself.
So I disagree with Juliana about him being courageous for basically the same reasons as Lucy, because it says that he was either being like tempted by alcohol or like being bribed to go in. And also because in paragraph 1 it says Ivan was a timid little man, so timid that the villagers called him Pigeon or mocked him with the title Ivan the Terrible. And timid means like scared, and also if you have ever encountered a pigeon, they are they run away and fly away. So
I would like to agree with what Lucy said, because when he was in the cemetery,
When she said
that he was in the cemetery and he was so afraid, because if you were a courageous person, you would walk into the cemetery and you would like maybe be like a little frightened, but you would at least have a little bit of courage in yourself instead of being like, I'm so scared and I may not be able to get through this.
I disagree with your statement and statement because
you got to clarify which statement you disagree with.
well, that Ivan isn't brave, because I would consider that he's brave, because even though he did avoid the cemetery at first, it could be a possibility that it just displeased him to go through it. For example, he says, "It is nothing but earth, like all other earth." Another quote that proves that I think he is brave is when he accepts the challenge to prove to his peers that they are wrong. For example, "Yes, I'll cross the cemetery." In conclusion, I think that Ivan is brave.
While I understand Brendan's point, I want to add on to what Rhea said, and I agree with that. When she said that. Sorry. I want to add on to what Rhea said, because it says that in paragraph 5, Ivan said the cemetery is nothing to cross, Lieutenant. It is nothing but earth like all other earth. That's kind of justifying why he's like not going there. And when you're justifying why you're not doing it and not with like an excuse like it's just earth and not like I'm scared, it's kind of showing that you're cowardly because you're not admitting it.
So, another reason that I believe that he's not courageous is because in paragraph 10 it proves the point that he was just acting under the pressure and the fact that he was offered money. Because in paragraph 10 it says, Ivan pushed the cemetery gate open. He walked fast. Earth, just earth, like any other But the darkness was a massive dread. 5 gold rubles. The wind was cruel, and the saber was like ice in his hand. And when it says 5 gold rubles, it is proof that he was just thinking about that rather than anything else, and thinking that if he did this, he'd get paid, which like shows that he wasn't doing it out of courage. He was doing it out of wanting to get the money and just get it over with.
Well, I'd like to change my statement a bit. Now I would like to agree that yes, it is cowardly that he doesn't go through the cemetery, but I do think that it is brave that he accepts the challenge to prove his peers wrong.
I agree, I agree with Brendan, and I want to add on that Ivan risked his life to prove that the Cossack's wrong and that he could do stuff instead of being called a pigeon, and he also did it for the temptation of 5 gold rubles.
That was beautiful. So, I don't know what kind of time we have. Do you feel like you have more to say? Or you feel like we've said it and we can hear from the judges? Yeah?
I want to say, to add on to Brendan and to ask, like, what would have happened if he didn't take the challenge? The villagers would have still something could have happened to him. He might have thought that if he didn't take the challenge, things would just get that much worse.
So for Lucy's comment, I think he took the challenge because if he didn't do this, they would be still mocking him and calling him a pigeon, and he doesn't want to live a life like that, so he'd rather take the challenge instead of being ridiculed.
I agree with what Andrew said.
When he said?
Yeah, when he said that, like, when he said that it was like he could have said no to the challenge, because he had the option of saying no, and even if he said no, he still would have been teased, but he said yes, which I thought was courageous of him.
So continuing on to how Juliana said that even if he said no, even if he said no, in paragraph 3 it shows that he at least tried to say no, because it says Ivan's sickly protest only fed their taunts, and they jeered cruelly when the young Cossack lieutenant flung his horrid challenge at their quarry. And because it shows that he did try and say no because he didn't want to, because he was cowardly, but under the pressure he chose, and under the pressure and the offer of money, he chose to follow through with it and do it so that he wouldn't be mocked. He would get the money and hopefully get out of it.
I disagree with what you said, because with what Jacob said when he said that he kind of said no to the challenge, because that was before he said, but that was before the lieutenant challenged Ivan, and then you said paragraph 3, and in paragraph 6 the lieutenant cried a challenge then, and this is where the challenge really gets into the story, not in paragraph 3.
Well, going back to Ivan in the cemetery, yes, I do think that it was brave for him to accept it, but I also think it was brave that he didn't chicken out once he did get into the cemetery. For example, when he does keep saying Earth just like any other Earth, he does continue to walk fast because he is a bit afraid, but it also is pretty brave of him that he didn't just turn the other way and get out of there.
I'd like to add on to what Brendan said, where I understand how he was brave to be there, but I feel like if he wasn't so cowardly, then he wouldn't have been as paranoid, and therefore when he stabbed his coat, he wouldn't have, if he was brave, then he would have been in a calmer state of mind, where he would have seen that he stuck the saber through his coat and pinned himself down, and he would have just taken it out and maybe have lived. But because I think he was cowardly, that's why he was so paranoid and couldn't see in time that he had pinned himself down and he wasn't being held back by a dead body.
Well, in a cemetery, after all, in the freezing cold, if you do stab the ground and you can't move, it's spooky because the cemetery is full of dead bodies which could have ghosts or something. So and the sheer cold also couldn't let him think straight. So he probably did infer that there was a ghost or something holding him down, and that is pretty difficult to stay brave. So you would be very cowardly after that. So I think that he had to become a little scared in that situation with everything going on. But anyways, before that and while he was trying to complete the challenge, I do think he was brave.
I would like to add on to what Brendan said about him being cowardly when he stuck the sword into the ground and he was afraid. I think that also made him even more cowardly because he was under the influence of drinking, and
Can you repeat that last statement? More cowardly because?
he was more cowardly because he was under the influence of drinking, and that might have messed him up a little bit, and it could have made him think weirdly or stuff like that.
I know you're the last speaker. Go ahead.
I disagree about how he was under the influence, because right when he walked into the saloon, the customers started mocking him, and then right after that, that's when the lieutenant started mocking him, and the challenge started to begin, in between paragraph 2 and maybe around 4 or 5, and he never showed anything about him drinking or under the influence of anything.
Actually, in paragraph 7, it said, perhaps it was the vodka, perhaps it was the temptation of the 5 gold rubles.